Welcome to this week's episode of the Career Breakthrough Series. I'm your host, Paul Ames, and if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, or review our show to allow me to bring more incredible guests on the show and also to find out your feedback about who you'd really love to see me interview and also what you're really getting from our episodes and what you're really taking away. So, in today's episode, episode 52, I interviewed Kavit Haria. So Kavit began his career journey as a tabla player. So a tabla is basically an Indian traditional musical instrument. So Kavit began the journey really struggling to find opportunities to perform, to create a band, record his music, and get on gigs and tours. After finding an incredible mentor to help him along, 18 months later, Kavit was beginning to perform 2 to 4 gigs a week and even recording 3 albums with bands and amazing musicians like Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. So how incredible is that? So after this, Kavit soon realised the power of automation and being able to share his knowledge to help other musicians achieve the same results. So Kavit created an online platform that soon went off to help 120,000 musicians to do the same thing, to gain more traction and to get more exposure and get booked for more paid gigs. So moving on from that, Kavit now works with thought leaders and entrepreneurs to explode their brand and really get viral and seen for who they really are and to get massive exposure for themselves. So a key example of one of Kavit's clients is Jay Shetty. So Jay has created a massive viral influence and is one of the top influencers in the world in his field. And I'm so excited about his upcoming book, which I'll put in the show notes for all of you guys to get on board with. It's an incredible book that basically teaches you how to get all of the ideas out of your head into a profitable online course. So as I said, be sure to check out the show notes and check on the link in there to get on board with Kavit's book. You won't regret it. So without further ado, let's get started on the interview. I'll see you on the inside. Guys, welcome to another episode of the Career Breakthrough Series. I'm your host, Paul Ames, and thank you again so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your time, guys. On the show today, I've got an amazing guest called Kavit Haria. So Kavit originally started off as a musician, but realized the power in automation and launched an online business where he helped over 120,000 people with his music career education business. Kavit has spoken on stages alongside people like Grant Cardone and Gary Vee, and also has an incredible new book coming out called Don't Sleep on It, Turn Your Passion and Expertise into a Profitable Online Business. I'm so inspired to speak to Kavit. He's done some incredible things. And I've been following your journey for a little while. It's amazing the stuff you've done. And I'm actually pretty excited because I actually first got introduced to Kavit from reaching out to Jay Shetty. So yeah, I'm so happy he put me onto you and been able to share your journey. So thank you so much, man.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. And thanks for everyone tuning in and listening.
So Kavit, if you could just give my audience a bit of a background into basically what some of the biggest inspirations were for you growing up and what really sparked your journey into being a musician.
Oh, wow. Cool. I feel like, so I'll give you a bit of background about me.
Yeah,
so
sure.
my birth happened in London. My parents, my mom and dad, both were born in Kenya,
Wow.
which is in Africa. And both their parents, so all 4 of them my grandparents were born in India.
Oh.
So my grandparents basically migrated from India for a better life to Kenya. And my parents essentially came for a better life for us, their kids, to London. It's been an amazing journey of culture. And of course, I was only born in London, but I've got this incredible interest and love for traveling. So ever since we were young, and I think that really comes from my parents, we've always traveled. So I grew up for 11 years in Lagos, Nigeria. I traveled the whole of the West Africa. A few years ago, so about 8 years ago now, I traveled the entire south to east, all the way up to North Africa. I traveled the whole of India. I traveled the Far East. And for me, travel has been one of the biggest inspirations to do anything that I like in my life. I feel like because of travel, I've learned more than going through the education system.
Yeah.
I feel like I've allowed myself to immerse myself in cultures and ways of living and ways of thinking that really appreciate more of life. So travel is one big inspiration.
Definitely.
And of course, my dad, his brothers, they were all entrepreneurs. And so as I grew up, I didn't really know this at the time, but subconsciously, I must have been picking up something about being in business, the freedom that it comes with, the having more time, the struggling and making those risky decisions. And so it's always been something that has pulled me. Yet at the same time, I'm one of 3 siblings, and I've always been interested in genetics. And so I went to university and I did a degree in genetics. So 3 years of my life were spent really immersed in studying genetics. And it also not only creates a whole new way of thinking and a new way of looking at things and a new way of questioning life, but it really allows you to explore the intricacies of really what you want to do in life. And so while I was at university, I was also running this music business. But then going back to the music, which is where you started your question, and I think that born in an Indian family, every Indian kid is always encouraged to learn an instrument. It just is something that happens. Like you have an Indian child, or your parents are Indian, they send you to learn an Indian instrument, whether it's the harmonium or the tabla or the sitar or to sing or to dance or whatever it is. It's something that just seems to be in the culture. I think it's exciting, but I think that all the credit goes to my parents, because they really nurtured and encouraged me to try different things, but then to stick at the one that I liked. And when I really didn't want to stick at it, to encourage me to stick at it. Because most people actually all across the world get to go and learn some music instrument. If you're living in the US or the UK or maybe even in Australia, I don't know for sure, but singing and learning to play an instrument is part of the education system.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's not pushed and encouraged to the point where you have to do it. And so is sport. And I think I played hockey. I played hockey for my borough here. I played hockey in school. I captained, etc. And it was great. But at some point, it just fizzled out. And it's not like I was nurtured to push that as much as I was to push my music. And I feel like, and I say this to everyone who I meet who has young kids, that whatever you do, even if they don't want to learn the instrument, just push them a little bit more, because they'll be much more grateful when they get to the other end and they realize they've got a skill that they can actually use, not just a skill that they can say, I used to play the guitar, but I've played it a bit. But that confidence that comes with it, the learning that comes with it, the growth that comes with it. So I've always been into music. My cousins, my brother is a singer. My cousins play other instruments. We've all been nurtured, but I'm very grateful to my parents for that additional push, which will let me move ahead. And then finally, where I took my music career was purely because of living in London. So and living in Lagos, I listened to Western music. I listened to pop, to jazz, to R&B, to hip hop. And my main goal was to try and fuse this Indian Eastern music with this Western music. That was the real inspiration. How could I bring something new to the world? And so that was very exciting.
That's awesome, man. I've got so much gold out of what you've just said already. I think it's incredible. And I can only imagine, I haven't traveled too much. I've traveled a few times internationally, but mostly around Australia. But there's so much to pick up from different cultures. And I can just imagine, being such a well-seasoned traveler, all of the intricacies and the music and inspiration that you're going to get from each one of these cultures when you learn in depth what's going on there. And that's amazing. And I do love that you said about, I've got 2 young kids as well. So I think it's great that you've suggested that as well. How you were saying, give them a little push and help them upskill and get the things that they need to get somewhere in life. So that's great, man.
I think people really misunderstand the value of learning music. Just because we're on this tangent for a second, but music isn't just sitting there and playing the guitar or playing the keyboard or playing a drum set. Music actually influences your ability to think better, your ability to learn mathematics better, your ability to learn languages better, your ability to experience life better. So it has all these different additional benefits that we don't really see until we're really into it. So I think definitely it's something that I would encourage people to continue.
So true. Yeah, such valuable points there. And I'd love to find out, what was your musical instrument of choice? What was the main one that you found the most passion, or, one that you most enjoyed playing?
So I play the tabla. That's my instrument. It's a percussion instrument. It's bongos, congos, djembe. You play them with your palms. The tabla is a North Indian drum you play with your fingers. It's a lot more intricate. It's actually dubbed the most difficult percussion instrument in the world. So wow. I've been playing that for 17 to 20 years now. Wow. I performed across the entire country for years, week upon week. I played with some big names like Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin at the Royal Albert Hall. So it's been an exciting journey, a great journey.
Yeah, definitely. And just touching on, so going obviously from a traditional approach with music to then launching into an online platform, what did you find were some of the biggest difficulties, or having to break, the norm of heading into that field? What are some of the things that you went through that you really struggled with, and how did you push through some of those barriers? Yeah,
well, I want to clarify that the online business that I built was helping musicians get more gigs, sell more music, grow more of their exposure. I wasn't teaching my instrument online.
Oh, okay, perfect.
The reason I fell into that side of things was because I had generated playing a rare instrument trying to struggle to find musicians initially because nobody plays unless they get paid because you got to earn money, all the way to getting really popular gigs with really big artists. The only way I could go into that business was if I had those experiences. So I had these experiences and people were asking me, and that kind of snowballed into, well, you know what? I can teach people how to get more gigs because I've done it for the last 3 years consistently, week after week. I can teach people how to grow an online platform because I've built the biggest MySpace platform for a tabla player at that time. I can teach people how to sell their music on Facebook, on CD Baby, because I was doing that with albums I had. So I started to put this information into ebooks, CDs, DVDs, coaching programs, membership sites. And from 2005 to 2010, I built this whole platform where I was reaching 120,000 musicians about the music business specifically, not about my instrument.
Yep. No, that's perfect. I think that's incredible. Building that out to 120,000, that's phenomenal to do with an online platform. I've recently, not recently, a while ago, I did some online courses. Created some online courses with one of my friends who was a specialist in Australia in online courses. So yeah, it's quite an amazing little thing to do, to create courses and, to have your expertise out in the world. So I'm just going to transition into the next question that I've got. So, for anyone, obviously everyone's got an amazing ability, or, everyone's got these traits or skills or knowledge that they can help share with the world. So for anyone looking to get that knowledge out of their head and potentially look at getting out into an online course, what would be some of the best advice you'd share for people to get that out of their head and then start on the path of creating an online course?
Yeah, that's a really nice transition. And it's also a great question. So here's the thing. I really believe that every single one of us, just like you've said, has something to share. Like we have some traits, some knowledge, some skill, some experience, some expertise, some life knowledge that we've built up and we have to share that. And so I think the very first thing is to realize that we have that. And most people feel like, maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I'm not there yet. Maybe it's not the right time. Just get rid of those fears. Like for whatever, you just imagine that you have right now something that someone needs. Because the truth of the matter is you do. Like there is never, everyone can be an expert because where they are, they already have hundreds of hours of experience, of knowledge, of reading, of learning, of traveling, whatever it is that they want to use to share with the world. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to remember that when you're sharing what it is that you want to share, you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for someone else. Yeah, so that means you need to have that other person in mind. So you don't go out there to write a book because you want to do it for yourself in most cases. You want to do it because it's for someone else who's going to benefit from it. You don't go out there to say that you want to help somebody learn to play the piano because you're doing it for yourself. You do it because it's for that person. So bring that person to the front of your mind and let's get very clear about who they are. What age are they? What gender are they? Where do they live? So this is the typical customer avatar thing. What goals and values do they have in life? What are the challenges that they face in life? What is it that they really want to learn? I have a client who basically is a guitarist. And I don't just work with musicians, but this just came up to the top of my head, so I'm sharing it. I have a client who's a guitarist. He's been a very successful guitarist in the US, and he's teaching kids as part of his day job on how to play the guitar. But he realizes that the real people that really want to learn online and don't have that much time, want to be able to pick up a video whenever they can, are adults. They want to learn how to play the guitar so that one fine Christmas day, they can pick up the guitar, play around the Christmas tree for their family, nothing professional, but really feel fulfilled doing it. And so by knowing and by getting clear about the goals and values of that person they want to sell to, then the third step, so the first step is know that you've got this value. The second step is identify and bring to the front of your mind everything you know about this person you want to write for, create for, sell to. And then the third point is they have a journey. That customer has a journey, and your product, your idea, your knowledge is going to help them solve and walk through that journey. So for example, in the book, we talk about a big activity called mapping realities. It's probably the most important exercise anyone who's starting in business could do. And here's what it says. It says that your potential customer has two realities that they're experiencing. The first reality is what we call the current reality, point A. The current reality says, right now, I feel this. Right now, I struggle with this. Right now, I'm facing this. My thoughts and belief about where I am with my body if I want to lose weight are this right now. This is where I am. I don't feel that fit. I feel over bloated. I feel like I could I feel embarrassed in my bikini. I feel unhappy with the way my life is. I feel sleepy, for example.
Yeah.
And then the other reality that they're living is called the ideal reality, or point B, which is I want to fit into that dress. I want to feel and wake up. And I am feeling energized when I wake up. I'm feeling like I'm in control of my diet. My thoughts are fresher. I'm not lethargic. I'm eating fresher. I'm drinking fresher, etc. So now there are two different worlds there. And your customer is in their head going through these two different worlds, because at one point they're like, my life is like this right now. And at the other point is, I want this. I desire this. So you've got to realize that when you're ready to share your material, whatever it is that you do, is going to take someone from that point A to point B.
Yep, exactly.
It's going to do that. And that is an amazing thing. Like, if you know how to help someone teach to play the guitar, you're going to go from, I wish I could play the guitar. I don't have any time to, I can play a song around the Christmas tree. Or I want to get into a job and I'm struggling and I can't find a job too. I'm finding someone a job. So like, you're moving someone on a journey from A to B. And that is an incredible thing to realize. And then obviously make a note of what those steps are, which is very important. So like, write down in minute detail, these are the steps that somebody needs to take using what I know to go from where they are to where they want to be. And that would be a really big activity to get done.
That's perfect, Kavit. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's some great advice, guys. Go back and have a listen to that. And I just wanted to touch on the first point. I love what you said about there is no perfect time. Get rid of those fears in your own head. Because, I did the same thing. I remember when I started with my online courses, my little boy was 1 month old, and I worked tirelessly with my business partner at the time to create 10 online courses, staying up late nights. And at the time before that, I was thinking, I'm not ready for this. Is it going to be good enough?
Yeah.
And, I just put it out into the world, and, it's amazing what comes when you, put your things out into the world and then work on it and refine it from there. So guys, don't let that fear hold you back. So the great advice, man.
That's why the book is called Don't Sleep on It, because it's a call to unleash what you know. There's sitting on the sidelines robs the world of the contribution you can make.
Most definitely.
And that's really strong and powerful, because you're here. I say this to everyone that I meet, especially clients that are sitting on the fence and like wanting to do something. I say that you're in this world because you have a duty to give this world. You can't just be in this world for free. And the duty that you have and the responsibility that you have is to give what you know and to share what you know and to share what you've learned, because other people are going to benefit from that and make the world better.
Yeah, so true. That's great advice to tell people as well. I think so many people don't even realize their potential and what they can really offer in the world. So, just touching on what you're saying, some amazing stuff out of your book. So, for anybody looking to get on board, I'll definitely post the link to Kavit's incredible book in the show notes for you. But just wanting to find out. So, if anyone's curious about what they're going to learn and what sort of actionable tips and advice they're going to get from your book, what would you recommend would be say 3 to 5 actionable tips that they could get from your book?
Yeah, perfect. First of all, it's a very short read. You can sit and read it in 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, nice.
It walks you through 3 key areas. One is, the first area is like understanding your value. Like, what is it that's special about you? How do you bring that out? How do you translate that into written word? I have always believed that the more clearer you are, the more clarity you have, the more energy you'll bring to your vision, because you'll have more confidence, you'll have more courage, you'll have more certainty in the work that you do. So it really helps you get clear on that. And then the second thing is, then how do you package all that idea and your knowledge into a program, a course, a product, a service that you want to sell online? So how do you really concisely put all your information in a way that people can understand and read it? The biggest problem in the world today with courses is not there are too many courses, is that people aren't finishing the courses they buy.
Yeah.
And that is no fault of the customer, in my opinion. That is the fault of the course creator. Definitely. The person who's creating the course hasn't taken into consideration enough of the customer. Because if you really understand the customer, you'll create a course where the course is short, it's digestible, it's engaging, it's got lessons and activities, it's moving people along a journey. And your job is to create that momentum.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Newton says in physics that a body in motion stays in motion. So your course has to follow that law to keep going forward. So we talk about the course in that second part. And the third part is really all about marketing. Like, how do I really get my work to the world? How do I use the Facebook ads funnel that works the best? How do I use social media? How do I use content marketing? And we touch in some of the things that work really well for our clients right now in the book. So that's what it is. And it's a really nice, comfortable read. I think hopefully people will find it engaging and they can get it online.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been watching your progress on Facebook and Instagram of you doing the audible recordings in the studio and, yeah, some of the flip throughs for your book. And guys, yeah, I highly recommend getting on board with it. So as I said, be sure to check out the show notes to get on board with a copy of it. So, Kavit, I'd love to know, obviously you've gone through a lot of different transitions in your journey in your career up to where you are now. So what would you say would be some of the biggest mental roadblocks that you've had to overcome? And how do you feel you successfully transitioned past those roadblocks?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. The first one I think would have to be finding the confidence to find the musicians who want to experiment with a new style of music. So when I started out, I realized that I wanted to play the tabla, an Indian instrument, with Western music. Yep. But the biggest thing I found and I learned very quickly in the music industry is that if you don't have gigs, if you don't have recording opportunities, paid opportunities for other musicians, they're not going to voluntarily give up their time to practice with you, especially if you want really good musicians, because they've got to earn money. So they're working a day job. They're not going to give up that free time or evening gig time to work with you. That's so cool. That I struggled with that for 6 months. I had to build. I mean, I actually could see my confidence depleting because I was less confident about reaching out to more and more people because I felt like I was failing. Yeah. So getting past that was a really big, important opportunity. And I realized that I had to put myself out there to really sell to gigs, to venues, essentially, to get a few gigs before I could get the musicians to perform with me. So that was the first one. The second one came when I moved into the music business, and I was having a great time building it. I was making some good money. I was working 16-hour days, and I realized that I wanted to go traveling for an entire year. And I had to be willing to let go. I had to be willing to say, I'm happy to give you, and you, 3 other people, the responsibility of running the day-to-day of this part of the business, to handle the customer service, to handle the shipments, to handle other queries and refunds and all kinds of things that go on in the business. I found that really difficult. I find it really difficult to say to somebody else, you write the blog posts now for the music industry, or you write the copy for the sales page. Because I felt like I was always the one who could do it the best because it was my baby. Yep. And letting go of that was a really tough journey. But having said that, now and for the last few years, the energy and the momentum that I've gained just because of that decision like 10 years ago to willing to let go has been incredible. Like I know it's so easy for me right now to just delegate stuff because I feel like my ethos is now hire people that are better than you and pay for it.
Exactly. Man.
And at that time I was hiring the cheapest labor and hoping that they would do the greatest amount of work, not realizing that I would have to handhold them the most. Yeah. Whereas right now it's like, okay, pay more, be willing to share more of the revenue. You'll get more in return anyway, but you'll get back more time. You'll get back more energy. So that letting go thing was a really important piece of my business journey.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And then the other one that I remember just because it's come to the top of my head right now is speaking in front of 400, 500 people. I think I've done at least 20, 30 events now in the last 10 years where I've spoken in front of at least 500 people. And it doesn't get any easier. It doesn't get like those few moments, the half an hour before I get on stage, those 5 minutes when someone's introducing me on are the most difficult moments because inside I'm buzzing, inside I'm trying to keep occupied, I'm fidgeting, I'm nervous. When I get on stage, I'm amazing. Like I really enjoy that. I love that opportunity to share. I don't even realize that I'm on stage. I just feel like I'm speaking to a group of people. But awesome. Just before that and learning to handle that. And of course, I've played tabla in front of like thousands of people before. And it's just very different. It's just that same nervous energy is there. But sitting and playing an instrument and using your mouth to give a talk are so different. Yeah. And so those were some interesting experiences I went through.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's funny. Like I've there's a few points I wanted to touch on that. Like I think that's incredible what you've said. The key differences between playing an instrument and saying I've heard a lot of people say about everybody has that fear. That fear doesn't leave you whether you've spoken in front of thousands and thousands of audiences, you've been on thousands of stages. Everybody has that fear. It's how you embrace that fear and how you move past that fear. So yeah, I think that's a great point that you've shared there. And I love that you've touched on what you've gone through in your career journey as well, some of those obstacles. And yeah, you should be so proud of yourself, Kavit, for what you've achieved, man. I know a lot of people, especially as business people, and that you don't often hear that. It's incredible to reflect on what you've done and the things that you've achieved. So man, you should be really proud of yourself.
Thank you.
So, Kavit, I've got a bit of a random question I love to ask all of my guests. Obviously, coming from my original business with career counseling, it's called the miracle question. So, imagine if you went to sleep tonight and overnight a miracle had occurred. When you woke up the next morning, everything you ever wanted to impact in the world or anyone you wanted to impact in the world had come true. There were no financial roadblocks or no mental roadblocks holding you back. What would be that big impact you'd love to make on the world, and why would it be so important to you?
I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, and I grew up quite comfortably. There was of course, I've traveled the entire world mostly, and I've seen a lot of poverty everywhere. And the one thing that always comes back to me as part of my grand vision that I would love to see that next morning is people in villages that are trying to build something for their family, whether it's farming, whether it's sewing machines, whether it's, getting water, whatever it is, teaching in a school, whatever they're doing, driving a bus, whatever it is. I want people to have marketing and business education sales and business education at the very basic level. So I want entrepreneur schools to be in some of the greatest areas of the world where they could inspire people and give them the basic curriculum in business structure and sales and marketing so that people can start to lift their families out of some level of poverty and create their own comfort on their own 2 feet. That would be the greatest thing that this world could ever see, because it would solve so many issues, so many problems.
Oh, definitely. What an amazing response. I love that you shared that as well. It's speaking to Patrick Pett David before in one of my previous episodes, it was, a similar sort of response there with some of the things that he said as well. So obviously, experiencing those sort of backgrounds, and, he was explaining how he came from Iran, where he was bombed a lot every day growing up and had to escape. So, to see those things firsthand, and then to be able to create those impacts where, like you said, to have a sales and marketing background or, a strong base knowledge to be able to do that. Yeah, it'd be incredible to watch those people grow and develop from just teachings like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I really appreciate you sharing that, man. So I'd love to also find out. I know you're going through an amazing journey with your book at the moment. So what are some of the things you're most excited about looking into the future, whether that be with your business or where your book's heading to?
My vision is for me to write, and I have a few ideas, for me to write one book every year for the next 5 years.
Nice.
I've been doing this for 12 years. It's not a short time in the internet space, and I've grown a huge amount personally, spiritually, mentally, physically. And I feel that there are so many different learnings that could come through in multiple books that would then inspire other people. I've worked with over 120 clients in just the 4 years alone in the service that we've been running to help them launch and grow their business to 100 grand in the very first year. So these are people that are experts, powerful teachers, sharers, people that know something that they feel they want to share. There are so many success stories that if I just work on digging up and sharing, it will inspire people enough to start doing these things on their own. So the very first thing is I'm committed to doing that. I'm really excited about it. I want short books. I don't want long books. I'm very excited to see how that comes out. I've been doing some powerful work with some big players in our world that are really sharing wisdom virally, like Jay Shetty, as you mentioned earlier on. And so for example, he's one of my clients and business partners, and he's reaching 12 million people on Facebook in just 18 months. And he's got, 5,000 people in his membership site. He's like, and where he's really every week changing lives. And I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to be able to create those platforms for things like that to happen. So I'm so blessed to be able to do more work like that. I'm excited for what comes up because it really allows me to reach more people. It will also open the doors for me to find the right partnerships to do these entrepreneur schools in the right part of the world. So the next 5 years are quite exciting. I always look at the long term, though. I'm not really, if this book does great, it's fantastic. If it doesn't do great, it'll still reach a few thousand people. It's fantastic. I'm excited for what comes after that.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your vision, man. I appreciate that. That's incredible. And as I said, it's incredible what you've done. I mean, especially with working with Jay as well, to stuff that, 18 months to get that sort of traction. That's mind-blowing, to say the least. So, hats off, man. So just getting ready to wrap up soon, Kavit. So, I'd just love to know what would be, if you've got any parting advice or some of the best advice that you've learned throughout your career or your business that could really help some of my listeners. Obviously, a lot of people who do listen are in their career trying to progress or, looking to either transition from a career into a business. So what do you feel would be some of the best parting advice that you feel you could share that you've learned over your time?
I think the very first thing, which I just touched on right now, was that you really have to be willing to look at this for the long term. So be willing to realize that the results that you get tomorrow or next week or next month or even in the next year do not reflect the kind of results you can achieve if you stay consistent on focus on the things that interest you, on the project you're working on the business you're pursuing, on the career you're pursuing. But having said that, in order for you to be consistent, in order for me to do this for 10 years and continue to want to do this, I have to have passion about what I'm working on. Exactly. And if I don't have a good amount of joy and energy about what I'm working on, it's not going to happen. So that passion is super important and super powerful, super important to have for you to have the long-term consistency that's required for you to find that success. So have the passion and then be willing to be consistent. And no matter what it is you do, whether it's a career or it's a job or it's a business or it's a project, it's going to be fine. You'll get there.
Exactly. I love that you've touched on that, and it's so true. Like, especially that was one of the early things I did early on with my business, was realize why I was doing this, what was the big driving forces for me behind it, and a lot of it for me is my family and wanting to provide the best life I can for them. So, when we've gone through our dips and troughs and ups and downs in business and life, that's the thing that drives me forward and keeps you consistent and persistent with things. So, yeah, that's great advice that you've shared there, man.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Oh, Kavit, and just before we wrap up, I'd love to know, say if anyone wanted to reach out to you or get a hold of that incredible book of yours, where would be the best place for them to do that?
So the book is available everywhere online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, Wordery, Audible in a couple of weeks. And also you can just go directly to the book website, don'tsleeponitbook.com, and check out the bonuses that we have on offer there as well.
Perfect. Kavit, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, man. I've really learned so much. And as I said, you should be proud of the journey you've gone through and, come out the other side from the struggles and tough times. So, yeah, my hat goes off to you, man. You're an incredible person.
Yeah, I think it's only just starting, though. So thank you for that.
That's the exciting part. So, guys, I really appreciate your time. And, stay tuned next week. We've got another incredible guest who's really going to help you break through that glass ceiling in your career. So stay tuned then. Awesome. Thank